First of all, welcome to my shop. I've been working on cleaning it up and expanding it for about 3 weeks now. It's a work in progress, but it's coming along. What I wanted to talk to you about today is the audio by Van Alstine Vision Phono. This is a pre-2017 model. It came originally with 4 Burr Brown integrated circuit op amps. He later went to a Linear Technologies op amp, which he says is quieter. And I can attest to that because for a time I ran them. In fact, the fact that he was offering those as an upgrade, he would put them in if you wanted, or he would send them to you, but that was years ago, and I had to get mine from Mouser, as a lot of people do. And that's when I realized that the op amps were something that was easily swapped out on this unit, and I believe is on his Vision Phono Q+, the latest iteration that he just came out with in the last couple of months. I didn't even understand how important the op amps are. I didn't know that there was a difference between an integrated circuit op amp and a discrete op amp. What I knew was that when I started out, this was a pretty good phono stage for the money. Right now, his current model is under $600, and this one probably wasn't a whole lot less than that back in 2017. He's kept his pricing pretty consistent. Frank makes a big deal, as he should, out of using quality components. If you take a look inside, you're going to see that all of the RCA outs are locked right into the chassis. They're not on the board. And he's using good resistors and good capacitors, but there is room for improvement, as there always is. And when it comes to trying to make a unit sub $600 that you can actually make a profit on, one of the places that you're likely to end up having to make a bit of a compromise is going to be in the op amps themselves. I say that because what I'm running now, 4 op amps from Sparkos Lab, cost me about $140. And did it make a big improvement? Oh yeah, it made a huge improvement. Andrew Sparks at Sparkos Labs also has a pro version of the chips that are used, among other things, in microphones. I believe RCA has used them, and a number of, if you want to call them boutique quality audio manufacturers, also use them. And again, for under $600 today, this is actually a pretty good phono stage made in Minnesota. So, how did the difference in the Sparkos Labs discrete op amps come to me in terms of listening to music? Well, first of all, let me show you the different albums that I decided to use to really evaluate them. Pretty much everything you might imagine, a lot of instrumental, some pretty hard-hitting rock, things that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily consider, might not even be your taste, to be honest. Enya. I'm going to take a minute to tell you that being an audiophile is kind of like being a combination of a foodie and a chef. A foodie is going to tell you that there's a combination of flavors that roll off your tongue, that there's texture, that you're looking for only so much of a blending of those different tastes. You want to be able to taste certain things distinctly, and then there's the blending, which gives you something entirely different. a chef is going to work like hell to give you something that is really interesting to eat and to experience. And the last thing you would want to do is to throw all that stuff into a blender and decide that that's how you want to have your gourmet meal. Audiophiles are kind of the same way. Once you have the opportunity to hear your favorite music through a very good sound system, one that lets you pick apart the different pieces or flavors, if you will, and accurately represents them, while still blending things together to give you the overall feeling that you would get from, a chorus or an orchestra or even a rock band, you're not going to want to go back. Once you start being able to hear things like the pluck of a string, the brat of a horn, you're just going to go, okay, I understand. There's a little bit more going on here than I ever heard before. And Enya's kind of like that. I think most of the ways that people have heard her work on the radio, they may have heard that she does a lot of layering, but they're never going to get it because it doesn't come across the same way. Trust me. I also want to say that the Vision Phono stage is by far the oldest and as a result the weakest link in my audio system. When I first got it, I was running a dual 1219 with a Shure V15 Mark III cartridge. I was alternating between plugging it into the back of a Denon home theater amp and a very aging Sansui integrated amp from the 80s that would actually be good if it were ever rebuilt, which has not, happened. I was running a set of Infinity reference 6s from the 80s that were very tired. As you can see here, things have changed quite a bit. I have a fully restored Thorens TD124 Mark II. It has several modifications both to the drivetrain and the plinth, which is a pretty amazing piece that was made by Chris Harbin at Woodsong Audio up in Idaho. I'm running a high-density graphite platter mat and high-density graphite weight and the same material used for a head shell, all from Simone Lucetti in Rome, Italy. The old Infinity Reference 6s turned into a set of Zoo Audio Omen 2 Dirty Weekend speakers. If you know the line, you know what the Dirty Weekend's all about. It's basically a promotional way to get people to buy into the system. They're good. They have every bell and whistle that Sean Casey would put in to the Dirty Weekend line. And I'm running a Deckware 341.5 dual triode tube amp from Steve Deckert. So basically, there's been a lot of upgrading going on, and it was time to deal with the phono stage. I had to make a decision. Did I want to stay with what I've got, or did I want to go and put $2,000 to $4,000 into something else? I'm continuing to look at other options. But when I understood that I could upgrade this one, well, I was curious. What was I going to hear? Was I going to be, blown away by what $140 can do? Yeah, I was. The pluck of strings that I know is there is now present and accounted for. Bass is still not strong, but that's not the op amp. That's more a matter of the fact that I listen at very low levels. And while the Omen 2s are something like 89 or 91 dB efficient, they're just not gonna move a lot of air from that little dual triode amp unless I crank it up as far as I can. And then we start to hear the bass pretty nicely. But it's better defined with the Sparkos Labs discrete op amps than it was before. But I'll tell you what I really noticed. And it's the part that I think matters the most, but it doesn't get talked about quite as much. Everybody talks about clean, sparkling highs and deep, well-defined, tight bass, and you've heard all the buzzwords, and they're all true. But if you don't have a good, clear, solid, what I call low mid-range, upper lows, if you will, I think that's really where the soundstage comes into play, where the speakers begin to disappear, where the room starts to feel like it's got a little bit more room to it, and the speakers are a little bit bigger, and the amp is a little bit more refined. Well, the Sparkos Labs discrete op amps, they brought that out. It was kind of a night and day thing. I know everybody says that. Every time there's a new piece, it's like, oh my God, I got to tell you how great this is. Well, understand, I don't make changes to my system every day. In fact, let's face it, this thing I've had since 2017, and I'm only now getting around to deciding it needs to be changed. I tend to make changes in my equipment very infrequently, and then I just learn to enjoy it the way that it is. I don't fuss over it very much. So trust me, if I heard that kind of a difference, if your system's up to it, you're probably going to hear it too, if this is the kind of phono stage that you've been running. I'll make one recommendation. If you get the Sparkos Labs discrete op amps, spend the extra $2 a piece to get the risers. You may or may not use them to clear some of the components in whatever phono stage you're looking at. But it's best to have them on hand. I could have used one simply because I have one pesky component that's keeping one of the op amps from fully seating. And do understand that his Pro models, which are much quieter and are also much larger, he does offer a setup package where those which are not basically plug and play out of the box the way that these are, he'll go ahead and do the soldering for you and get it set up so that if you want to plug it in to the same kind of socket that you've got on this, you can be good to go. But by golly, they are big, so make sure if you're going to get them that you've got the room. Yeah, Sparkos Audio. Andrew Sparks, he's over in the Denver area, and yeah, I highly recommend his stuff.